Hi all, Frosty here, and I'm going to be reacting to patch 13.1. This is the first official patch of 2023, and we'll also kick off season 13, so let's get into it. So there's a couple buffs, a couple of nerfs, there's also some item adjustments, as well as a preview of the mid-scope update for Jax, which I think is really interesting. So let's start with the buffs. So Shaka, he's getting buffs to his Q and E. So the mana cost is reduced for his Q by 20, and his backstab critical strike is increased by 10%, and his E's AD ratio is increased by 5%. So these buffs look to be for his AD playstyle, and I really like how they're going about it. Q buffs means he'll do more damage, so he'll clear the jungle quicker. Not only that, but because of the mana cost reduction, it means that he can now do more Qs for the same amount of mana. So now, instead of doing 2 Qs for 120 mana, you can do 3 Qs for 120 mana. So it means that Shaka players will just have more chances to make plays with the Q invisible. So I think this will push a bit more of an aggro playstyle, but it also is just a benefit for the whole game, having a lower mana for the ability, and it's one of the crucial abilities for Shaka to set up kills and ganks. So I think this is a really good buff. The E increase, while it will increase damage, it is only a 5% increase for the AD ratio, so it's not a huge increase, but more damage is always good for an assassin. So I think these are good buffs, and I think this will have an increase in play rate and win rate. So Jace, they're increasing his base AD by 3, they're increasing the damage on his Q melee, and they're also increasing the damage per tick on his W melee. So base AD increase is always going to be huge. That means that it's always going to be easier for you to farm because you do more damage, and in fights you're always going to do more damage. So this is always good, and for Jace who likes to, poker and like fight, these are really good changes. The Q melee and W melee changes also mean that there's a higher chance you're going to win trades and fights. So I think what this means is now Jace is going to be a bit more aggressive in lane, and you always have a higher chance of coming out on top and being able to push the lane in and then reset. So I think these are good buffs, but Jace of course is very oppressive in lane, so I think that while these will have an increase in his play rate, I don't think they'll have an increase in his win rate, because I think this is going to mean that counters to Jace are going to pop up and they're going to be played more often if Jace is stronger. So Lissandra, they're increasing the HP by 6 per level, they're increasing the slow on the Q, and they're reducing the cooldown on the W. So I like these changes. It looks like they're trying to make Lissandra a bit beefier, as well as fit her more into the utility mage playstyle. I think these will be good. I don't really know what builds Lissandra goes at the moment or how much damage she does, but point and click ult, you've got all this new utility and you're beefier, so you survive the fight longer. I think these are good changes. And I think, honestly, what I want to do is I want to see if a tank Lissandra will come back. I think support Lissandra with Aftershock is always a fun one. If you pair it with Caitlyn, you can use the W root. So you E in, W root, and then Caitlyn trap on it, so you get the guarantee. And it's really easy to pick off, and you're really oppressive in lane. So I think I really want to try that now. It also might bring back tank Lissandra in top. It was an off-meta pick way back. I don't know how viable it is, but it could be fun. But yeah, I think it'll increase in pick rate. I don't know what win rate Lissandra has, but I see that it will be an increase in win rate as well. So Sion, they're increasing the base HP by 40, and they're also increasing the Q maximum damage by 20 at level 1. I think these are good changes. I don't think Sion is in a bad state. I've versed Sions with Jack Show, and it's been... You just can't kill him, right? So these buffs both work for tank Sion as well as AD Sion, and I imagine this is going to be an increase in play rate because the buff exists, and that means more of his fans are going to see that and more people are going to play. I think the one big thing here to note is that it's maximum damage, which means that, and I know in a lot of fights, if you're playing Sion, if you don't land the CC and you go to Q, if they're about to escape, you let go of your Q, so you do some damage, but the buff is only to the maximum damage, which means that you have to max channel. So I think this is going to lead to a lot more bush cheesing with Sion because there's more damage, and I imagine more clips and more funny moments about that. But yeah, no, I think these are good buffs, and I think they'll definitely have an increase in play rate and win rate. So Xayah, they're buffing the base attack speed as well as the attack speed ratio by 0.03. Yes, 0.035. I don't actually know what attack speed ratio is, to be honest, but I don't also know how big a buff is of 0.03. I imagine if you're a Xayah one trick, you'd be able to feel these quality of life improvements, and I imagine that in terms of farming as well as early trades and landing your feather combo, this will have a higher chance, as you'll be able to get your feathers out quicker. But again, I don't really know the math side of it, so I don't actually know how big 0.03 is. But any buff, I imagine, is always going to lead to an increase in play rate, so that's what I predict. Twisted Fate, the Q wildcards cooldown is reduced. Instead of being 6 flat, it now goes to 5 at max rank. They've also buffed the AP ratio on the blue card and the red card. I really like these buffs. QCD decrease means more cast, which is always good, which means you'll be able to poke through lane and you'll always be able to try and roam quicker. The red card AP ratio also increases how quickly you can farm the wave. Higher AP ratio on a splash damage ability means that you're always going to be able to do more damage and clear the wave quicker. I also like these buffs because they haven't buffed the ult, which is the more oppressive part of Twisted Fate Kit, being that you can just get around the map wherever you want to be. These buffs means that you can still push in the lane and then roam, but you can only ult every now and then, and I think it's like a 2 minute to 3 minute cooldown. But I do see an increase in play rate, especially, and win rate, and I think maybe even meme videos of people just one-shotting with blue card. Onto the nerfs. So Aatrox, they're reducing the max HP damage on the passive. They're decreasing the healing on the E, and they're also decreasing the move speed during ult. So I versed a lot of Aatrox, and I must say Aatrox is a very annoying champion to verse. Sustain is just disgusting, and when you pair it with Death Stance, it's even worse. It's really annoying. So what the nerfs is doing is, A, it's reducing your damage during fights, which I think is really good. It's one of the most impressive parts of him, is that he can do so much damage and then heal it all. They're decreasing the healing during ult, which is good, which means that during these fights, you have a higher chance of out-sustaining the healing he gets and killing him. And the ult movement speed is also good because, A, it means it's harder for him to actually get to you. So if he ults and then, dashes and you flash away, there's a higher chance you can get away. But also now there's a higher chance you can actually catch him if he uses ult E to escape a fight. So I think these are really good changes. And I also think they're going to make him a bit squishier in lane after level 6. So yeah, I'm really happy with these, and I think there's going to be a decrease in play rate and win rate. So Dr. Mondo, the base HP has been reduced by 40. Armor per level has been reduced, and the passive damage bonus AD you get on the E has also been reduced. So I like these nerfs. From level 1, it means that Dr. Mondo is squishier in lane, which means that you have a higher chance of winning fights and poking him out, and which means that you can win the lane. E passive damage reduce means that he'll also do less damage, so you will be healthier when you come out of these fights as well. Of course, late game he is going to still be a big monster that's going to be very hard to kill. But this way, the Heartsteel Titanic combo means that without any resistances, you still have a chance to kill him, and you have to try and win the game early, because with the mathematical builds of Dr. Mondo and Set, you have to try and beat him before he gets to those crazy numbers. Otherwise, he will be doing crazy damage. An example, someone put on Reddit, they were playing Kai'Sa, they were fed, they did like 40k damage, and the Dr. Mondo did 71k damage. It's just like, well, okay, that's not fun at all. But yeah, I predict a decrease in play rate as also win rate. So Fiora, on the passive, they're reducing the bonus AD ratio from 4.5% to 4%, and they're also reducing the bonus AD ratio on Q. So these nerfs are going to decrease Fiora's damage, so you have a higher chance of winning fights / coming out on top of these trades if you fight her. However, because it's not because like no cooldowns have been changed or anything like that, Fiora is still going to have the same playstyle, so it will be interesting to see how much of an effect this has. I honestly don't think it's going to be that much of an effect. Fiora is still going to be oppressive in lane, and I think it's the passive that's one of the reasons why it's annoying to verse her, because if she procs the vital, she's always going to heal. Even if she does less damage now, she's still going to out-sustain you in these fights. So I don't know how much of an impact this is. I'm going to say decrease in play rate, especially if it's counter. That's another thing. Because Fiora counters Aatrox, if one of them decreases or increases in play rate, the other one will match it. So I think it's going to be a decrease, but I don't think the win rate is going to change at all, because Fiora players and Fiora mains especially are still going to play the same way, and they're still going to get to pretty much the same amount of damage. Cassante, they're reducing the base movement speed. They're decreasing the damage reduced on the passive, and they're also decreasing the damage reduced on the W. So I really like these nerfs. I've seen a lot of... When Cassandre first came out, I liked the look of him, but I didn't really understand what he was meant to do in these fights. And then, you know, my main thing was that he needed a Sheen item. He needed Iceborne Gauntlet because he's an auto-attack based tank, who then switches to a fighter. And once the preseason started coming out, he was insane. He was all these clips coming out of him one-shotting, you know, ADCs and fighting them and all that. So I'm really glad to see that they are looking at him and they are toning him down a little. Base movement speed is always going to be a huge nerf. I know everyone clowned on Riot when they, I think it was Irelia or Graves, they gave them a -5 movement speed and everyone was like, oh, this is the worst nerf as well. But it really worked because base movement speed means A, you're slow in fights, so it's harder to chase and it's harder to escape. And B, reduction means that it's harder to get to lane. So if you're forced out of lane and you don't have teleport, that means that your opponent will have a higher chance of pushing the lane in and putting it in a spot that's more advantageous to them than you. So base movement speed reduction is huge. Passive damage reduction is also huge. That means you're squishier in lane, which means then you're going to be poked out of lane even more. As well as the W nerfs. Once again, if you're reducing how much damage you can mitigate, you're going to be squishier in these fights, which means that overall Cassandre is going to be in a worse position, and I think that these nerfs are really going to hit him well. Because another thing is his W, when you ult in, you can just use the W to mitigate damage, and then it's like, well, okay, I can't do anything, he's mitigating all the damage, and then he just kills you, right? So I think these are huge nerfs and I'm really happy to see them. Rammus, they've reduced the base AD by 3, they've reduced the base HP as well, and then they're adjusting the W. So percent bonus resistance increase now also amplifies flat resistance from the spell itself, and armor reduced from 40 to 25. So base AD is always going to be a huge, if you reduce it, it's always going to be a huge impact. This means that Rammus now clears the jungle slower and does less damage in fights. What this means is that if you're versing a Rammus, you're more likely going to get to ganks first, which means that Rammus has to answer whatever you're doing on the map. Base HP also means that he's a bit squishier from level 1. I don't know if this W adjustment is going to there's a trade-off there, like the W then makes up for that, but squishier usually means that you're gonna now die quicker in fights. It's also gonna mean that in the jungle you're gonna take more damage with your base HP reduced, but I think the W change does mitigate this a little. I think he's gonna be stronger in the late game because now it amplifies the flat resistance, so now it's 25 and then 40% or 25 plus total armor. I think that's what it's trying to say now, instead of just 40 base 40 plus 60% of your total armor. So yeah, I think it's going to be a decrease in play rate and win rate, but I do still think he's still going to be around because Rammus is one of those niche champions. Very easy to get in and out of fights with the new R. I love the new R. It's very fun to play. He's got his catchphrase. Okay. So yeah, I think he's still going to stick around, but he has been a menace, especially if you're an ADC main or a fighter main with his CC kit. So yeah, I'm happy to see these nerfs. Yuumi, Q, Prowling Projectile, damage reduced. So at rank 5, it's now been reduced by 50, and empowered damage reduced has also been by 50 at late game. I really like these nerfs, while Yuumi, because in lane, if you're versing a Yuumi is annoying in 2 ways. 1, they poke you out with the airy proc, or B, they out-heal whatever damage you do. So reducing the amount of damage that they do to you in lane is something I'm always happy to see. It means that she's going to be less frustrating to lane against, and it also means it's also going to be safer for you to lane, so you can be a bit more aggressive in these lanes. I think it's going to be a decrease in play rate and win rate, but we'll have to see. Zeri, so AD per level reduced by 0.2, and the burst fire damage reduced as well. So Q damage nerf is going to be big. It again makes it less frustrating to lane against, and it also means it'll be safer for you to lane. It also means that it's going to be harder for Zeris to farm. You're doing less damage, and you also grow because of the AD per level reduced. You're also going to be getting... I mean, it is very small, it's minuscule, but you're still getting less AD by level 18. So yeah, I think it's going to be a decrease in not passive, play rate and win rate. So champion adjustment. So Jax. So passive can now go fishing in the river to periodically catch fish and gain 1 gold. Killing fish champions also reward 1 bonus gold. I really like that they've been adding that. I don't think I've seen these kind of lore thematic passives since Kha'Zix and Rengar were introduced. So the Q leap strike AP ratio has now been reduced to 0%. E, the counter strike changes, damage changed. Before, it used to calculate it based on 50% of bonus AD. It's now 4% max HP of the target plus 100% AP magic damage. And bonus damage per attack dodge changed 20% of total damage to 20% of base damage. And then the R, it's now, instead of having... so R, the passive damage reduced 100, 140, 180 plus 70% AP. It's now 80, 120, 160 plus 60% AP and has added VFX and SFX when ready. So new active, Jax swings his lantern around him, dealing 150/250/350 plus 100% AP magic damage to nearby enemies. If he hits a champion, he gains 25/45/65 plus 40% bonus AD armor plus what is this? Plus 15/20/25% plus 10% bonus AD per champion hit. What is this meant to be? Is this meant to be magic resist? I assume it's meant to be magic resist, as well as 60% of that value as magic resistance for the next 8 seconds. During this time, the passive damage amplifies every second stack instead of every third. Ooh, that's really cool. Cooldown increased from 80 to 100 to /90/80. So it looks like they're trying to push him into a more of an 8. See, that's the thing. So his Q has an AD ratio, and at the moment, Jax usually builds Blade first. It really works well with his kit, and then you go Blade Divine Sunderer or Blade Trinity, I believe. So I think it does look like they're trying to push him into that hybrid build. So Q, you have AD ratio. E, you no longer have any bonus AD because E is now based on the target as well as 100% AP. And Grandmaster's Might is bonus AD, but also you deal damage equal to your bonus AP. So it does look like you're being pushed into this hybrid build. I imagine it's something like, I reckon you still need to go a Sheen build. I still reckon Divine Sunderer or Trinity are your best mythics. But then I imagine Blade, Nash's, Cosmic, Hydra, Zhonya's, these are all possible used items that you could go now. And I guess I think one of the reasons why they've given it as 100% AP is because they don't expect you to be, well, they don't think you're going to be building that many AP items. I imagine just Lichbane or just Nash's, and because you're only getting one item, you get 100% of what that item gives, which I think is good logic. But I still think, but I don't think their thinking was, oh, if we put like, crazy AP ratios on him, he's going to be moved to the mid lane. And now you're going to have people going, Night Harvester, Horizon Focus, Rabadon's Death Cap, all these mage items and just trying to one-shot people, because I don't think that's how he's meant to be built. So this is going to be interesting. And of course, I am going to try and do him like that. But I don't know how I feel about this. I think giving his ult a better, a better active, I think I like that. I definitely think that's going to help him. And as we've seen, whenever champions get these like mid-scope champion adjustments, they always skyrocket in play rate and win rate because people, well, one, they assume that they're going to be versing the same kind of thing, so they need to adapt, so they don't really know what they're versing. And B, people who already play him kind of still understand what needs to be done to get Jax to the finish line, to get that dub. So I think this is going to be an increase in play rate and win rate. I think it's going to be a lot more fun. But it will be interesting to see what his most common build is. I think it is going to be you rush Blade, and then you go Divine Sunderer, and then you go Nash's or Cosmic for the ability haste as well as the movement speed and the HP. And you get 100% of that, which is what you want in these fights. Because another item, I guess, could be Wit's End, but then now you can be like, oh, okay, I could get Wit's End for the magic resistance, or I could get Nash's Tooth. I imagine Wit's End is still the better one of the two, but if you are very fed and you want to be doing more damage, I imagine Nash's would help you. Nash's Tooth would help you there. So I think it's going to be interesting. Definitely want to see what happens. I haven't really seen any notes from the Jax subreddit or Jax mains commenting on this, but I think it'll be interesting. And once again, history has told us that whenever these mid-scope updates happen, there's always going to be a skyrocketing in play rate and win rate. So system buffs, Axiom Arc, the lethality is now increased to 18. I think this is a huge buff, as I believe now Axiom Arc has the same lethality as Yomu's, which means users will do more damage with the item. However, Axiom Arc is still dependent on what your ultimate is. For example, Zed or Zed, Karthus, those kind of champions. I know Karthus is a bit of a meme, but like the champions that have these big impact ultimates that want to hit them quicker, is why you'd want to get Axiom Arc. So I think it's still going to compete for that spot with Yomu's, but there's definitely going to be an increase in buy rate of this item because people are going to now be like, I could get the same lethality and I could get my ultimate quicker, so then I could go into these fights, and if it goes well, then it will reset quicker, and then I can go make more plays on the map, which is a pretty cool thinking. So Horizon Focus, and now increase the AP by 15. It's definitely a big buff for these long-range artillery champions such as Vel'Koz and Xerath and other CC heavy mages. I think more AP is always good. Well, I mean, it's always going to be a good buff, right? Because then you're always going to be doing more damage based on your AP ratio. I think there'll be an increase in buy rate for this item. I think always when there's a buff, I think that's my methodology. Is always if there's going to be buff, then you're going to see it more. And I think just buffing the base AP, I think is good, especially if they keep the same recipe. I think that's one thing, because they haven't mentioned costs, which I think is one of the huge things, because it's the same with Axiom's Arc. If they're increasing the base stats of the item and they're not changing the price, that means these items are now more cost efficient. I haven't done the maths. I'm sure, LS or someone else has been doing that maths and they can give you a better picture. But that is the gist of it. So yeah, I think we'll be seeing more mages like Xerath and Vel'Koz. I personally run Horizon Focus on AP Taric with Hextech Rocket Belt. I think it's so much fun. You one-shot, it's insane. I highly recommend it to everyone. So Rod of Ages, they're increasing the HP by 100. The Eternity buff, so healing or mana restored required to proc move speed, has been reduced by 50, and your move speed has also been increased by 10%. So these are huge buffs. What this means is A, you are now going to be tankier later on, which is good. B, healing or mana restored required to proc movement speed reduced, which means now it's quicker to get your 35% bonus movement speed. So you're going to be tankier, you're going to be able to move around quicker in these fights. I think these are going to be huge buffs, and I think it's going to help to make this item a bit more of a choice for mages, because it was introduced later on, and I think, Kassadin, Cassiopeia, Swain, Ryze, I think is going to be the big winner of this patch. I think they can now look at these items and go, this is really good, this is kind of what I want. I want to be beefy, I want to go into fights, and I want to be, moving around, especially Cassiopeia. The increased movement speed means that you can essentially juke more, that's the word, I was going to say gank, juke more, and now, with a higher movement speed, you can now try and land your Qs quicker to get the ease off, and you can chase more. So I think it's a really good buff, and we're definitely going to see an increase in buy rate of that. Winter's Approach, they've reduced the cost by 100 and they've increased the HP by 50. I don't really know what champions build this item, but if you're reducing the cost and you're increasing one of the base stats, it's now going to be more cost efficient, which means that it's most likely going to be more of there's more of an incentive to now buy this item because it's cheaper and you're going to be tankier for it. I don't really know what mana tanks there are. I think there's Singed. I think you can get on Singed. I think you could also get it on Rise if you want to go that build, but I think it's much better to get Seraphs. But yeah, we'll have to see what builds pop up with these changes in items. So system nerfs, Legend Tenacity, they're reducing the tenacity by stack by 1%. So this is going to be a big nerf. It means that you're now getting at max stacks 5% less tenacity from this rune, which means that CC is going to last longer, and it means you're more likely to lose fights, or you're going to be out of fights more. So I think it's a big nerf, and it's going to be like, but it's also based on what you're versing, team comp. Because if you're versing, a Malphite, Yasuo, Galio, all these CC heavy champions, you're still going to take this rune, right? Because you still want that tenacity. It's going to be a nerf and it's going to hurt, but tenacity is still one of the best stats, and it's why the green pet has been the best, the most used pet, because the bonus tenacity you get is just insane, and tenacity is just one of the best stats you can have in period. So I think this rune is still going to be used. for example, if they had buffed the lifesteal or the attack speed one, they might be chosen. But if you're versing a CC heavy team comp, you're still going to be choosing Legend Tenacity, I think. So system adjustments, Jack Show, they've increased the cost by 100. Resistance increase at max stacks changed. It's now 20% of bonus resistances instead of 15% of total. The drain has been increased, 3% max HP to 80 plus 7% max HP, and drain no longer drains from minions and monsters. So I think these are good nerfs. First of all, it will take longer to purchase the item, so now it's less cost efficient. And the big nerf is now that it cannot drain from minions or monsters, which means that in fights, you only have 5 sources that you can drain HP from, which is a really good change. I actually didn't know you could drain from minions and monsters. It means that, you know, I've done this in the past. I've played Jack Show Swain, and you're just in a team fight, and you're just not losing any HP. But that's because you're draining from all these different sources, but now you can only drain from champions. So I think it's a big nerf. It's stronger for tanks due to the increase in resistances. And the increase in the drain. I think as a tank you still want this item, and I think that's what they were trying to do. Because yeah, now it's going to be weaker for fighters, which is good, as the item was being abused by literally everyone. You know, Master Yi, Warwick, etc. I think they did come out and say that they are trying to adjust it so that Jack Show is more for tanks. I think that these nerfs are good. Another reason, sorry, I just realized, is because it's bonus resistances. If you're a fighter, you're not going to be building many bonus resistances. If you're a tank, you're going to be building a lot of bonus resistances, so it's going to make you much beefier. So I think this is a really good adjustment. Archangel Staff. So they've increased the cost by 400. They've changed the build path. It's now Tear of the Goddess plus Kindle Gem plus Needlessly Large Rod. The AP has been increased by 20, and your ability haste has been increased by 10. So there's big changes. Once again, I don't really do, like, you know, the big mat stuff of League. So I don't know if 20 AP and 10 ability haste is equal to 400 gold. What I can say is that because the build path has changed, you're going to be hitting your spikes later. For example, you'd start Tear and then you'd go Blasting One Kindle Gem, I imagine. Now your options will be Tear and then maybe Boots, Tear Boots or Needlessly Large Rod. Those are your now big trade-offs, because Needlessly Large Rod is 1250 and Blasting One is 850. Another thing this means is that you'd want to stay in lane longer, as you're going to need to farm more and get more gold to get a Needlessly Large Rod compared to a Blasting Wand. So I think that these are big changes, and again, I guess it depends on, does 20 AP and 10 ability haste equal 400 gold? If it does, then these are good changes. If not, then we'll have to see. But we also have the Seraph's Embrace change, so they've added ability haste to it by 10, and it no longer grants ability haste based on bonus mana, but now grants AP equal to 2.5% bonus mana, which is huge, which now means that once it stacks, you get 20 bonus AP plus AP equal to 2.5% of your bonus mana. So you're going to be doing a lot more damage when Seraph's Embrace fully stacks. And then the Imperium passive has been removed. It now has a Lifeline passive, which grants a shield of 250 plus 20% current mana. So I think the Seraph buff, I think, is going to be huge, and I think we are now going to be looking at a Mage meta. I know I was saying earlier, well, actually I don't know if I was saying this in my last video, but I was predicting when I saw the new items that we were going to go for a tank meta. But the Rod of Ages buff, the Seraph's buff, Horizon buff, not really going to do much. There was another buff that I wanted, I can't remember which one it was, but there was another thing that I wanted to talk, unless I already mentioned it. No, but I think Cassiopeia, Kassadin, Rise is one of the big ones. Definitely we're going to be seeing a lot more Rise, but I think we're also going to be seeing a lot more ban rate for these champions. So Rise, Kassadin, Cassiopeia, maybe not Cassiopeia, I think she's played less than the others. Oriana, that's another one. Swain is another one. These mana mages, they're going to be using, and another thing, another thing is Aurelion Soul. They've revealed Aurelion Soul's rework and how it's going to be, and I think you're still going to need to go Tear on Aurelion Soul for the Q, which is going to drain your mana, and that's your main way of farming, so you're still going to go Tear because you need that extra mana. Seraph's Embrace and Archangel Staff being buffed means that Aurelion Soul is going to be a lot stronger, and this is one of my worries actually, because if Aurelion Soul is in a really good state next patch with these new item buffs, and then they change it, and Aurelion Soul is now in an even better state, well then, you know, they're gonna have to tone down numbers and all this, and it's just gonna cause balance issues and, you know, issues in the community. But I think we are heading for a major meta. Well, actually, I say major meta, I think we're heading for a lot more of Kassadin, Cassiopeia, the big four, sorry, the big five, Orianna, in the presence of the meta and in presence of, you know, champion select. But I think it's going to be banned, right? I think Kassadin, especially in low elo, is going to be banned a lot, because once you hit level 16, and I think Rod of Ages still gives you a level, so once you hit that level 16 power spike, Kassadin is just going to be insane. More AP, so you're going to be doing more damage, you're going to be one-shotting quicker, more ability haste, which means you're going to be doing these abilities even quicker, and you're going to be tankier, because if you go Rod, you'll have more HP and movement speed, and if you go Seraphs, which you will, you now get this insane shield of 250 plus 20% of your current mana. Oh, it's current mana, okay, that's good, but it's still a shield, right? So I think we're definitely going to be seeing a lot more of those champions, and I think there is some worry about the community. I think I was reading that, you know, people are a bit concerned that these mages are going to become monsters in this next patch. We will have to see, but I'm definitely keen to try out these new champions. But yeah, I think it's an interesting patch. I think there are definitely some things I want to try out. You know, Seraph's Embrace, I want to try out. Horizon Focus, I really want to try out. I was trying out like Astim's Arc Shen, which was a lot of fun. I got one clip of it, but it was really hard to tell that I had managed to get my ult down from like, it was like 100 seconds or 20 seconds through a fight, but it was a lot of fun. But yeah, no, I'm really keen to try some things. I think it's a good patch. I much prefer a mage meta than a tank meta as a jungler and a support player, so I think I'm really happy. Sorry if I stumbled a bit, it's been a while, and I haven't drank any water, I should probably do that. But I hope, if you made it to the end, I hope you've enjoyed my takes, and I hope you've enjoyed my thoughts, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And if you want, hit that like button and subscribe, because I'll be trying to do reacts to as many League news and Hearthstone news and other news as well that I'm interested in, and I think I have the knowledge to react to. Alright, thanks all, bye!